Good morning to everyone. I want to welcome you all to Boundary Systems Wednesday webinar. My name is Michael Wimberly, and I will be conducting the webinar for today. Today we'll be talking about software license management reporting for FlexLM and FlexNet, which are the core licensing softwares for PTC products. So the objectives of this, of course, is simply review and demonstrate the software licensing reporting. So we're going to go through and do a general introduction of myself, Boundary Systems as well, and then go over the actual topic itself as far as the actual licensing reporting software, and then actually do a demonstration on it. And then when that's over, we'll have an open Q&A session for any questions that you may have associated with it. So my name is Michael Wimberly. I am a senior technical specialist here at Boundary Systems. I've been with Boundary Systems now for over 5 years. I've been working with PTC products for now over 20 years, coming up on 25 years actually. And I'm certified trainer in Creo and Windchill classes, as well as a certified implementation specialist with Windchill. Boundary Systems as a whole, first, they're located in Cleveland, Ohio. Right outside of the airport area in Middleburg Heights. We are a technology leader. Partners include PTC, Solid Thinking, eTraj, ZWCAD, and some other technology companies, which is one we're going to cover today. We'll cover that in just a moment. And then we're also been one of the 16th fastest growing private companies in the greater Cleveland area. Some of our capabilities that allow us to continue to be one of the fastest growing companies and a technology leader is we have product lifecycle management, we have data management, we have CAD design and consulting, we have simulation, as well as product development. What you see on the right side of the screen are just some of the companies that we work with currently or in the past. And once again, this isn't everybody that we've worked with, of course. We've worked with many companies. These are just a few of them that we have listed on the side. Once again, some of our industry awards include being on the Inc. 5000 as well as the Weatherhead 100. And then some of our major accreditations being a Windchill Certified Implementer, PTC Preferred Service Provider, and PTC Certified Training Partner. With our training, we actually do training on site at our facility in Cleveland. I'm actually out of Cincinnati, so we actually have a center here that we train out of as well as we can come to you to do training on site. So we do have mobile training centers that we can go in and bring to your facility as well. So all those things are available from us. All right, and once again, some of our technology partners being PTC, Solid Thinking, eTraj, ModeX 3D, Mentor Graphics, Flow EFD, and then ZWCAD for 2D CAD functionality. All right, so as we continue through, whether it's related to the software that we're going to deal with right now, or any PTC related software, so just any technical questions that you may have, you can contact myself. Once again, my name is Michael Wimberly, and I can be reached at 513-415-0747, or of course send me an email at mwimberly@boundarysys.com. Any sales related questions, you can call the office at 440-274-0291, or you can send an email to sales@boundarysys.com. All right, so license management, just a general discussion. License management is always a discussion that is had in companies. That is not a topic that can be avoided, that is ever avoided, because every piece of software that a company has is driven by a license, whether it's a perpetual license where they physically own that license file, or like most companies are doing now, they have subscription licenses where you basically have the license for a period of time. When that period is up, then that license basically ceases to work. Many licenses, some of the questions that are asked is simply, how many licenses do we have? How many licenses do we actually use? How many will we need in the future if we're looking to expand, or we're continuing to grow, or we see that our licenses are being maxed out? How many more licenses do we need? When are licenses that we have, when do they expire? Which licenses are on what servers? So you may have multiple locations and different licenses or different servers that different people are hitting. Well, which license server is most people pulling their licenses from? And then even the question is why? Why are they pulling that from that particular license server versus the one, that's even closer to them? They may be pulling from a different building versus their own building. And then once again, as I said, which server is getting the most activity? And questions continue on and on and on until you narrow down how much information, or the amount of information that you need to go in and make a nice guesstimate on that information. And that's really the best you're going to do at this point in time, is a general guesstimate. Um, to figure out how much licenses you're going to use. You have the question, okay, how many of these licenses do we use? The answer is, well, we sometimes use this one, we use these, we use it over this period of time, we've used it here, but once again, these are kind of guesses. We're not exactly sure. We're just kind of estimating in our head, the usage that we have. So in general, once again, the conversation every year happens when budgets are being discussed, and of course when license renewals come up. I know with your PTC software, that always comes up with, okay, what do we have? What are we paying for? What's the maintenance cost on it? All those things accumulate, because once again, it's important to know how much money you're spending on licensing. So sure, like we had the questions just a moment ago, we can go in and do a general audit on the software. We can even come in and do auditing for your software to see how active your licenses are. But once again, you're still kind of doing a guess, because you're kind of saying, okay, well, this group uses these licenses. Well, but then if you research it, it may end up that they're not even pulling from the license server that you think they're pulling from. So once again, everything is not necessarily exactly a science right now. It's once again just kind of guessing. Well, at this point, let's take some of that guesswork out of the license usage. So we now have a software that is called Xformation. We're basically, the piece of the Xformation that we're looking at right now is a license statistics, which simply allows us to go through and evaluate the licenses. So it is a feature-rich license management software that delivers unprecedented efficiency in monitoring and reporting your company's license usage. So this actually allows us to actually monitor the license usage. So who's using what licenses are getting the most use out of, out of these many licenses, how many of them are we actually using? And you can do it over a period of time. You can do it for this week, we can do it over a month, we can do it over a year. We can go through and specify how much, or see how many of our licenses we've used over this period of time. And what we're looking at down at the bottom are just simply a few of the windows that we'll actually go through and use. The first one we're looking at here is just simply the dashboard. So with this, the license statistic dashboard gives us a high-level overview of your license usage, including license servers being monitored, current usage on multiple hosts, features expiring in 12 months, and other reports. So there are other things that we can also go through and look at in this dashboard. So this is basically like your home screen. You get a lot of information inside of this one screen. As they stated, the first thing you have to do is, of course, register your license server or servers. And then it'll go through and begin to monitor the actual usage of the licenses within that server. Then you can go in and see, okay, for the licenses, these different options in the license have been used. This is how often they've been used. Out of 15 licenses, we've used 7 of them. And over the last 8 months, our average uses of those licenses hasn't been above 8 users. So once again, we're then evaluating that information. We'll get into this in more detail during the demo. Then, of course, we have different reports that we can go through and use. So you have current users. So basically, current active users that are actually actively using the software. Current utilization, like right now, what licenses are being used, what options are being actually used currently right now in our system. I want to see expiring features, usage per user, real-time user count, and of course, currently borrowed licenses. So just like within the PTC software, we can go in and borrow a license. Well, it actually shows us what licenses have been borrowed and how often they've been borrowed. So it has quite a bit of information that you can go through and use. And then, of course, viewing feature usage. So as we know, inside of our licenses inside of our PTC, license file, there's a lot of different features that we can go through and use. So you may have, your simulate functionality. You may have options modeler. You may have simulation, whatever they may be. You have all those different options and you want to know how often they're used. You can go in and have this report and actually have it on that specific option. So if we want to know how often we're using our mode design option, okay, well, we can go in and find what that option is, go in and see the usage of that particular option. So if it's something that we're using on a normal basis, great. If we haven't used it in the last 12 months, maybe it's something we need to evaluate whether or not we want to go in and keep that or renew the maintenance on that. So once again, we can continue to go in and evaluate that on a feature basis as well as an overall license usage basis. Now, I know currently what the title of this is using the software for our FlexLM and FlexNet software, but this license management software does support multiple license servers. So we're not looking at, like I said, just the FlexNet and the FlexLM. You have the IBM, you have the actual LMX license management. You can see LS Dyna, Mathematica, RSoft. So there's quite a few other ones that are listed, but this isn't everything. So there's quite a few license servers or licensing softwares that it actually goes through and monitors. Now, with that, you can go through and see that there's some little tags underneath them. You have the option of real time and you have imported. Real time is, you can do that with your FlexNet. So basically with your Creo license. What that allows you to do is monitor it real time. So once again, as I said, I can go in and I say, okay, I want to see what licenses are being used right now. I can go in and monitor that information. You also have the option of import only. What that does is it doesn't monitor it real time, but it does allow you to go through and take the log files from your other license management software and import it into this, and then it creates the reports from that. So you can still go through and import that log file over the last month, over the last 6 months, whatever it is, or however large the log file may be, import it into the software and allow it to now go in and analyze the data so you can see over the last 6 months, these are the licenses that were used. So it still gives you that information, but it doesn't do it real time. It does it based on that import that you're doing from that license server software. So some of them allow for both. Some of them allow for one or the other. As you can see, there's a beta LM that is real-time only. There's a GNS that's real-time only, but the bottom row talks about some of the ones that are, once again, import only, which you can't monitor it, but it's allowing you to import the data inside of there, inside the software. All right, so at this point, we're going to go ahead and get out of the presentation piece of it and then go into the actual license management part. So, all right. So we're looking at here, I have two things set up. So I have two different tabs. One of them is actually for my local computer. So I'm actually monitoring my Creo license, my Creo licenses directly on my computer. And then I also have an additional site that I'm actually monitoring, which just gives me some more data to go through and show you information for. All right, so once again, what we're using is the module for license statistics. So what you'll see once again on the left side is the actual license servers that I'm going in and monitoring. On the right side of that, you can see the licenses that will be expiring within the next 12 months. Underneath, you see the actual current usage of the software. And then at the bottom, you see the highest usage of the software. It's currently actually calculating the different values, so it's actually reading it in. That's also one of the things that you can do when we say real time. We can actually go through and specify how often it basically rereads that information. So I think this one may be set up for, I think every 5 or 10 minutes, I can't remember off the top of my head, to go in and reread that information. For the one that I have, for my local one, I've actually set that up to go in and read every minute. So if you look right now, there's nothing that I'm actually working with directly inside of the software. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up one of my options. So I'm going to go ahead and open up right now my Creo parametric. Now, a lot of people have it set up when they go through and open up your Creo session. If you have multiple options, you may have multiple startup commands. So this also allows you to see who's accessing which particular startup commands, because once again, they're pulling those different options when they start Creo. So for this one, I'm going to go in and open up just my rep license. I'm not going to add all the additional options that come with it. I'm just going to go in and open up directly my rep license. So I'm going to allow that to go ahead and start up. Then I'll minimize that, and then I'm going to go ahead and open up my Creo Direct as well. So I'm actually going to open up two applications so we can go in and see how that's monitored within the application. All right, so once again, that currently is mine. I'm going to give it a few seconds to go through and recalculate it. And this one seems to still be thinking. All right, so there we have it. So now here, once again, is the dashboard. We can see over here, we're actually monitoring 6 different license servers. You can see where they're from. So these are Xformation license servers. You can see the actual license management software being the FlexNet for here. This one is actually a custom license server. So this is something that somebody else has gone through and set up, but it's also reading it. You can see how it's gathering the information. So 4 out of 6 of these are actually going in and reading it real time. And then these 2 here are actually imported. And then it also allows us to see whether or not the server itself is actually up and running. So we can see here that these are up. These are unknown, of course, because those are imported. So it's not monitoring whether or not the license server is actually active. It's just simply going in and based on the imported information. The other thing that's beneficial is it also shows you the redundancy that's set up. So it'll show you what's actually redundant, what has a redundant license server set up. And this one right here actually has a redundant license server set up. So it has backups if something was to happen to that particular license server. And then once again, over here on the left side, on the right side of that, you have features that are expiring within the next 12 months. And you can see that there's 61 here, there's 110 here, and 21 here. Now, as I put my mouse over each one of them, it's actually loading those applications that's actually going to go through and give me a list of the items that are actually expiring. And that's what it's doing now. I actually put it over the 110 one, so it's actually pulling up the 110 options. So we can see how those things are actually going to be expiring soon. And you can actually see when they're going to expire. So some of them are coming up really quickly. This one is, you can see here, once again, these are coming up pretty soon. Anything in red, I think, is within the next 30 days. And some of these are even closer than that. Some of these have already expired. So it goes in and shows you those. Some of these are coming up on expiration really quickly. Now, shifting from expiration to usage. What's important to us is, before we go through and renew these things that are expiring within the next, 30 days, we also want to come over here and see what's being used. So over here, we can come over and see, okay, we have, one license of this one is actually being used. This one we have 4 licenses of this one. This one is 3 of those are being used. We can see 11 of that one, and we continue to go on. This one actually has 168 listings. Now, what it's doing is it's showing you from all of the servers. So all the servers that we're monitoring, it's actually going in and showing us that data from each one of those. So that's why it's 168 of them. But if we did want to filter that down, and I want to go through and see just the information from the license server 2. So I can come over here to my filter, and I'm going to filter it and just go in and type in serve 2. And what that does, it now filters it down to just show me the 30 licenses that are actually going to be, in server 2. So it'll allow me to go through and see that. And I can see once again, here are some of the features that are actually listed. and their usage. Once again, that license is used. Here we have, about 3/4 of those being used, half of those being used, and then about a third of these being used. These haven't been touched right now. And once again, now this is current utilization. So we're looking at who's currently using these particular pieces of software. So I can go in and remove that filter and then filter once again by something else if I wanted to. But currently I just want to go ahead and leave it at the license server. I can go through and filter, so it does use it just like Windows does. If I pick the column header, it will filter based on that column header. I can go back and use it and set it back to the feature, and I can go in and use that there. Or once again, filter by utilization, so the things that are being used the most are actually at the top, or currently being used will be listed at the top, and then all the items that are not being used will be listed at the bottom. So, all right. And then over here, once again, highest usage. This actually talks about the most used of those particular items. And you can see here, so it says this particular user is currently using 97 features. So we can see who's using the most features inside of each one of those. Now, just for reference, let's go ahead and go back to mine. And if I go back to mine, once again, it has gone in and read it. And we can see that right now it is going in and showing that I'm using just these two options. So there are the options that I'm actually using. Once again, I have one license of each one of those, and each one of those is actually currently being used. So I can come back over here. I'm going to close out this, and I'm actually going to open it up. But this time I'm going to go in and use all of my options. So once again, let it come up. Minimize that back, and then we'll come back to that in just a moment. So over here, once again, if I did want to go in and look specifically at the different servers that I have listed here, I can just simply come over here and select on the server name. Also, there's an option up here for license server. So either one of these will allow me to go in and go to my servers. I also have the option of features. So if I want to go specific to a feature and see how much a particular feature is being used, I can do that here, or same thing over here. I can select on that feature name that's listed over here. And then I also have reports, and reports will be a separate item. So there's not a shortcut here to get to those or a specific link to go in and get to those from here. But I can go through and select any of these servers to go through and see the data for them. So I'm going to go ahead and select on server 2. And when I select on server 2, it now brings up server 2. It goes in and shows me what's currently being used on server 2. So currently server 2, it's not showing any utilization. It's not updated. Recover the page. Not sure what just happened there. Just give it a second to come back up. Okay, let's see. Let me check something with a different server. For some reason, it's not reading that one properly. I'm not sure why. All right, it's waking up. Good. All right, so as we can see, once again, we can now see over here we have the different feature items that are on that particular server. Here are the items used. Here are the items borrowed. Here's what may be reserved that's going to be borrowed later. Here's the total number that are actually being that we actually have. So for this one, we have 8 of that particular feature option of the 11 that are being used. If we scroll down, continue down, we can go through and see, okay, this feature right here is once again being used 100%. So we can continue to see how those things are actually being used inside of our systems as well. I'm just going to go back to mine. And as we can see right now, because I went in and opened up my Creo session and I went in and retrieved all of the options that I have available, you can see that right now it's showing 100% usage of my licensing. Now there are a couple that will be down here at the bottom that aren't actually listed here. Sorry, it's that 1 minute refresh that it's actually doing. So it's nice for the demo, but you never want to set it to 1 minute. That's just way too quickly. So you can see, once again, all the information that's down here. Now, what you also see is you see a bunch of numbers. So I've talked about the features and we see a bunch of numbers. Well, those numbers actually represent the items that are in your license file. So when you're looking at your Creo license, I'm going to close this down a little bit, and we're looking at these numbers here. These numbers here correspond with the numbers in your license file. So no, some of them are not with the names until you get down to the bottom, and those actually have the names, but inside of here, you'll actually see the actual numbers, and those numbers correspond with those different extensions that you have associated with your session. So that's what those numbers are that you're looking at inside of your licensing software. So like I said, these numbers correspond with what you actually have in your actual system. All right, so just so you know what those actually are. So once again, we can always come down here, and if I want to go in and see the general usage of one of the pieces of software, so for my rep license, I want to go through and look at my rep license and the usage of that particular rep license. So I can go through and select on that feature, and now it takes me to the feature area for that particular one, and you can see the activity of me going in and actually basically looking at that license. And this is currently just over today. So it's just looking at it for this particular day that I'm going in and using. I can go in and say, my usage history and get it over a period of time. And I can see that how often I've gone through and used this, over, so many days. So this is actually over the last 2 days that I've gone through and have used this, and see how many hours I've used that particular software. So I can come over here and specify how I want to go through and see it, what intervals I want to go through and see it at. Do I want to see it by the week? So instead of showing me day by day, show me the weeks. In this particular week, how often have I used it total? So I don't want to see how many per day. I want to see how much I've used it over the actual time frame of the month. And then for the user history, because this is just me, it's simply going in and showing who's accessed this particular license. And of course, that's just me. But if we come back over here and I do the same thing with this one, and I'm going to go ahead and select on that particular feature here, it's going to take me once again to its feature information. I don't know why it didn't take me to it directly. But I can go in and see that data there. I can go in and look at the usage history for that, once again specifying over a period of time. And I can see that it's had 80% utilization. I'm sorry, 60% utilization. I can also go through and see the user history as to who's accessed that particular item. Oh, make it go back a little bit further. Oh, I just realized it's actually using, because I'm monitoring multiple servers, all my servers are listed here. So if I want to go to a specific server, to a specific option, I can go through and look at it there. And as you can see, as I'm going through and selecting, it's going in and updating the utilization of that particular item here. I'm not sure. Oh, it hasn't gone back. I want to look at it for the week. Hmm. Not sure why it's not giving me the actual individual users on this one as far as who's accessed the data. I'm not sure, but it shows that it's being used. It's been used by 3 people. You have a total of 5 licenses. So I'm not sure why it's not showing me that particular piece of data. Okay, so on this one, now it's showing some information. So current usage, usage history. There we go. Not sure why it wasn't giving it to me before. So I just changed the feature that we're looking at, so it gave me some more information. So we can see that over this time period, so basically over the last month, we can see the usage of this. Once again, we basically only used about half of what we've actually have. So this is now when we can come in and now evaluate whether or not, okay, do we need the 20 licenses that we actually currently have, or can we reduce that down to maybe 15? We are looking at some potential growth, but we always want to have a little bit of extra in there. So maybe we can go down from 20 to 15 licenses instead of paying for all 20 of them. Because as we can see over the last month, it hasn't been enough activity currently for us to kind of justify having the 20 licenses. So once again, we can go through and evaluate, and this is just that particular floating option. But once again, we can go through and look at any of the different floating options that are available and see what their usage are. Same thing here. We've used half of these. We have a total of 190 of those, but we've only used 96 of them over the last month. Do we want to continue to pay for those extra licenses, or maybe there was something specific that happened during this month where we're not using that many licenses? Once again, it's just the evaluation of it, but we can see accurately through this software how many licenses have been used, and then even better is how many different people are accessing this as well. So we can look here, and it looks like just one individual has been using this, and currently they're still using it. So so not sure what they're doing to occupy 96 of these different options inside of the software, but they're using about half of them just themselves. Do we need the other 100 of them, or about 100 of them, to go in and maintain maintenance on those? So once again, we can continue to go through and evaluate each license to see which one is being used, how much is being used, so on and so forth. So once again, if I go back, and I actually want to go to the license server, not the dashboard. We'll go to the license server, and then we can also look at the usage history in that license server as well. So for each one of those, the data is being accessed on that particular server, which once again, this is a custom server. We can go through and monitor any other servers that we want. It'll go through and now populate that, and we can see how often it's been accessed and the information that's been accessed from it. It's just once again taking a few minutes to go in and calculate it, just because it has to pull up all of the options available or the licenses available on that particular server. But as we said before, we can look here in mine, once again, because this is just my license server on my laptop. I can see that, of course, I'm the only one accessing it, and when I'm accessing it. You can see currently I actually still have this information on. So I'm actually still using that particular software. So I'm still using my rep license. So it's nice to go in and see those things and how they're actually set up. So here's that actual layout here. So from server 2, this is a really, really good view of what we're actually using. So right now we're filtering it down to just 20 at a time. So we can go through of course, all the different pages to go through and look. But this gives us a really good idea over, once again, now right now we're just looking at a time frame of about a month. But we can see over this month time period, what have we maxed out on? Well, we've used 100% of that individual license, 100% of these. We haven't used these. This one, now the colors that you see. So you see green, you see kind of a yellowish orange color, and then a red. So red is anywhere between 90 and 100% usage. So if it falls within that range, that basically means you're maxing out or pretty close to maxing out on that particular license file. So you may want to evaluate whether or not you want to go in and add to the licenses that you have. For the yellow, that's anywhere between 70 and basically 89%. So it'll go from anywhere to 70 to 89% will be yellow. That basically means, of course, you're using the majority of the licenses that you have. You're still kind of safe, but at any point you can tip over and start maxing those out. But right now you're kind of at a comfortable level. You're using them pretty well. And then the green basically, as you can see, anywhere from 0 to 69 is simply we're not using those as much. So we are not using the full breadth of the amount of software that we have. So I'm going to filter this down to, or filter it up to go in and show 100 different ones, so we can just kind of scroll through this and look and see what's there. So once again, just give it a couple seconds to go in and repopulate, because it now has to add those additional 80 rows. So now we have it, and then once again, we can go through and see, things that we've maxed out on. And once again, right now we are looking at feature numbers. So that's where we have to go in and now pull up our actual license file and actually go in and see what these features actually equate to in our actual license file. So that is one of the steps that we'll have to kind of go through to evaluate what this actual license is actually looking at. So once again, it's simply going in and pulling up the feature numbers associated with that. So, and then just like anything else, we want to go through and filter. So I want to go through and filter by this. I want to see what we're maxing out on, or what we're not using as much of. So we can go through and sort this out by that particular column. Once again, just give it a few seconds to go through and update the display, and we'll be able to see that the sorting of our actual usage. So right now it's sorting from 0, so the least used down to the most used in our listing. So go ahead to the next page, and then what we'll also see is, once again, continued usage on that page as well. So one other thing that we can also look at, or that we're going to look at, are the different reports that are available. So I'm going to go ahead and go right to the reports screen. And then the reports are now listing all the different items. So you see current users. So current license usage of this particular item. You can actually see who's using it. So users using licenses, users not using licenses. So we can go in and see, it shows us a little pie chart over here. We can also see a usage per user. So we can see the activity of the users themselves. Once again, it's just populating the information. So we can actually see individual users and what they're actually using. So if somebody says they've used this continuously, we can also go through and check and verify. It was funny because we actually had dealt with, I dealt with in one of my past jobs, somebody saying that they had used this license on this particular server. Well, the server itself was actually shut down, and it had been shut down for a couple of months, but they said they just used that license last week. Doesn't really happen like that. So if the license isn't up, you can't use that license. So that was kind of a way of catching them, saying, no, you really hadn't used it, because that license server hasn't been up for 3 months now. So that way we don't keep stuff just because, hey, it sounds good. Somebody says, yeah, well, we plan on using that. Well, we planned on using it last year when we renewed it as well. Now we're at a point where, we're a year later and there's been no activity on that particular license. So once again, now we're going to evaluate whether or not we want to go through and use that. So as we can see here for this particular setup, we can go through and look and see, okay, here are the different users that are currently available. We can see that there are almost 5,000 users. We're not going to go through and look at each one of those users, but we do still have the ability to go through and filter. So if I want to go in and see just user underscore 2, I can still go through my filter and type in user underscore 2 and let it go in and filter down to just show me what this specific user has actually been accessing inside the database. Once again, it's going through almost 5,000 entries, so it's going to filter all that down to just show me the user 2 information. So once again, give it a few minutes to go in and calculate that information, or a few seconds, I should say, to go in and calculate that. So this is a good way, once again, of going in and seeing, whether or not we're using the modules that we should be using. If we have these add-ons, and it's basically set up for this particular user to use that particular add-on, we can evaluate to make sure they're actually using it. Once again, if they've been able to get their job done without it, do we really need it? So it's a good way of going in and evaluating the information. That didn't filter properly. Oh, that's why. I had an error. But as we saw in the past, we can go through and filter by that. I'm not sure why it's not filtering properly at this point, because there is user 2, but I'll go ahead and turn that off. But then once again, you have current utilization, so we can actually see what's currently being used. And then from what server is actually being pulled from. So for monitoring multiple servers, we can go in and verify what's actually being used from each server. And once again, as I said earlier during the presentation, if it's something that we want to begin to consolidate servers, consolidate licenses, we can see that, these individuals are pulling these same licenses from different servers. Well, let's go ahead and funnel everybody to this one server and update this individual license file. Or once again, it may be multiple sites where they do have separate license servers that need to remain separate. So we're still going on and analyzing what's being used per license server. And then once again, you have just additional information up here that we can go through: expiring features, a currently borrowed license, current usage above 24 hours. So basically somebody who's had a license out and hasn't shut down the software. So the usage over 24 hours, who's actually had this thing open, and hasn't shut down the actual software. And this is also a good one: current usage on multiple hosts. So you may have a user, but they have a session open on this computer and another session open on another computer. So we can actually see who has, licenses opened on multiple workstations. So it's a good way of going in and looking at that information as well. So as I said, with this is a really, really nice tool to go in and evaluate your license usage. That's the main purpose of this, to go in and evaluate the licenses that you have, and make sure that what you have is what you need. Do we need to increase the number of used licenses? Do we need to decrease the number of licenses because we're not even close to maxing out that number? We're using half of them, or we haven't used any of them. So when it comes time for that discussion of going in and creating, going in and having that discussion on renewing licenses, this is a good method to go in and do really accurate evaluations of what's being used and what's not being used, and justifications on why to keep and why not to keep. So this really helps out to go in and evaluate that information. All right, so at this point, I will come back here. And ask, are there any questions? So in your webinar option on the side, there is a questions area. So if you do have any questions, you can go in and enter them into the questions section. And currently I don't see any activity as far as questions in there. So as you continue to type or as you continue to look at different things, here's it once again, information. So any technical questions that you have, you can contact me directly at either by phone 513-415-0747 or by email at mwimberly@boundarysys.com. Or if you have any sales related questions, as in pricing for this, you can go in and contact our sales at 440-274-0291 or email at sales@boundarysys.com. If you do have any technical questions, you can go in and open up a technical support ticket with us. If you go to support.boundarysys.com, it'll take you to our actual ticket support system where you can go through and enter in a technical support question. It'll go to our technical team and someone will go in and evaluate and answer the question accordingly. You can also go through and send an email to our support team at support@boundarysys.com. You can go through and look at that as well. And of course, you can always find out more information on us on our website. So if you go to our website, have the information there, our current events, so our webinars. We have our upcoming webinars. So right now we're in the Xformation one. Next we have Creo NC, what's new in production manufacturing, and continue to go in and have additional ones there. So if you're interested in any of those, feel free, once again, go to our website under events, under webinars. We also have hands-on workshops that we're holding for Flow EFD as well as Creo. So any of those, and you can see here a listing of some of the ones that are coming up. So you can also go through and email Connor or call directly, and he'll get you the information for each one of those webinars that's also available. We also have training that's available. So if you have questions on that, you can go in and see our training schedule, our training locations, and even the course offerings that we have. So any of that information, and of course our services that we have as well. So any of that information that you're interested in, feel free to contact us either through our website, through the links, or once again, you can reach us directly through our phone number or direct emails. Any of those will be just fine. So once again, there aren't any questions that have come through. So I want to at this time say thank you for your time and enjoy the remainder of your afternoon. Thank you.